Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video I want to share with you my experiences with low volume, high intensity training. So the style of training that, for example, Mike Mentzer and Dorian Yates used in their bodybuilding careers and also with their clients. And I want to share with you what are my experiences with it and why did I decide to start training this way, and why do I think that this approach to training suits me the most and it's actually the best kind of training for me personally. So let's get right into it. Just for you to understand a bit of my history, I started training approximately 9 years ago. I think I was 13 years old when I started with the gym, so now I'm 22, so that's approximately 9 years ago. More than a half of these years of me training, I don't know exactly, but let's say first 5 years of me training, I've spent training like everybody else. So doing basic high volume workouts where you go to the gym, you do, let's say 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps on a first exercise, then 4 sets of 10 to 12 on a second, on a third, and so on. And you end up getting something like 10 to 20 sets per muscle group weekly and many times I would end up doing even more than that because I was thinking, still nowadays a lot of people think this way, that the more volume I do, the more I'll grow, which is definitely not true. And it took me a long time to realize that, So did I get results in those 5 years of me training this way with high volume approach? Well, certainly I did, I did make results. So I'm not here sitting and speaking that high volume training doesn't work, because it certainly worked for me and it worked for a lot of other people. But when I switched from the high volume training to more low volume, high intensity, progressive overload focused training, I saw some massive gains both in my strength and my muscle mass. So if I look back now and compare the high volume training and the training I use right now today, I would definitely say that the training approach I use right now, it's much more superior and gives me much better gains than what I did before. Plus it saves me a ton of time and I have more time for other things in my life because I'm not spending 2 to 3 hours 6 to 7 times weekly in the gym. But nowadays I only train something like 40 minutes really intensely 4 times weekly, and that gives me better results than compared to when I was training 7 times weekly for 2 to 3 hours a day. So in those 9 years, it's safe to say that I've tried pretty much almost all approaches to training. I've tried doing super crazy high volume, something like Arnold did, and super crazy high frequency, hitting each muscle group twice, 3 times weekly, and sometimes even doing 2 training sessions a day. Then I've tried more moderate volume approach. I've tried low volume approach. I've tried holding reps in reserve. I've tried training to failure. I've tried using all the giant sets and drop sets. And I've basically tried everything in those 9 years. And I've came to a conclusion that the approach that Dorian Yates and Mike Mentzer used, for example, I more lean towards Dorian Yates approach, but the high intensity, low volume approach where you train with very little sets, very little total volume, but with very high intensity and actually trying to progressive overload and get stronger each week on each exercise. This for sure gave me the best results, both in terms of strength and in terms of muscle mass. So after this approximately 5 years of me training with this basic high volume approach that everybody used and nowadays still many people use in the gym, I've had a coach that gave me a training program where there were only 2 to max 3 sets per exercise. And it was honestly a shock for me. I couldn't understand it because I was always used to doing 4 sets per exercise or sometimes even more. And all of a sudden he gives me less exercises and less sets per exercise. And I was like, are you serious? How can I improve if I'll all of a sudden start, doing less volume than I did? I had this in my mind, I need to do more. I need to do more sets, more volume, spend more time in the gym in order to get better, to grow better, So if I do less, then I will not grow as well. I'll not make such a good results. And I was it was really hard for me to accept this, but I was okay, he's my coach. I need to respect his decision, and I'll just give it a try and see what happens. So I've decided to give it a try. I listened to my coach and I started with this new training program where there were only 2 sets per exercise, or on some isolation there were 3 sets. And a few weeks in, I was like, whoa, like my strength is increasing. Like I'm getting bigger. I'm actually making some really good results. I'm actually growing faster and getting stronger faster than I was before. And this new program or training approach, because I actually had multiple programs write it like this, because I used this approach for like next 3 or 3.5 years, up until recently. This wasn't like a super low volume. It was a medium volume, I would say, approximately something like 8 to 12 sets per muscle group weekly, depending on a muscle group. On average, let's say 10 sets per muscle group weekly, which is not a low volume. It is not a high volume either. It is like a medium volume, somewhere in between. So when I started using this new approach, so less volume but more focus and more intensity and more focus on like actually progressing on the sets that I have and getting stronger from week to week, I started seeing some good results from that. And then recently, approximately a year ago, I started diving deeper into the Dorian Yates, Mike Mentzer, Arthur Jones philosophy to training and some other bodybuilders that use this approach, and actually started to like read a bunch of stuff from them and listen to their videos and watch their YouTube videos and stuff like that, and started to understand their approach to training, because I knew who they were before, but I never wanted to actually go and research how they trained and how it worked and why it worked so well, because I was programmed by that thinking that like I need to do a bunch of sets, a bunch of exercises, a bunch of volume to get the best results. It was very hard for my brain to accept this. But yeah, then approximately 1 year ago, I said, let's research it. Let's see like how can this guy train with only 1 set per exercise and get such a great results and become Mr. Olympia and be the best in the world by training with this little volume. How is that possible? It was very fascinating to me. So I started to read a bunch of stuff and watch a bunch of YouTube videos and listen to a bunch of podcasts about high intensity training, about Mike Mentzer, about Dorian Yates, about Arthur Jones, and so on and so on. But still, after reading all of this and doing my research and understanding this philosophy of training, I still didn't have the balls to actually try it for a long period of time, because I was still brainwashed and programmed into thinking that like more volume is better, and I would at the same time I would listen to the science gurus on the YouTube telling me that, oh no, but this is not optimal, you need to do higher volume, because higher volume is the volume is actually the driver of hypertrophy, and you need to do more sets, and as long as you recover from that, that's actually the best, and with low volume training you will not get optimal results. But then I said, look, I've tried high volume. I spent 5 years training with high volume. Now I spent 3.5 years training with moderate volume. Let's try the low volume and see how it goes. If I will not get the best results, I can always up the sets and go to higher volume again. Let's just give it a try. Let's pull back my sets and my volume even more. And let's only train like Dorian Yates did, only like 4 times weekly, and only do 1 set per exercise, and only do something like 2 to 7 sets per muscle group weekly. And let's give it a try. Like, what can I lose? Then I wrote myself a program for low volume high intensity training. It was very similar to like what Dorian Yates used to do, just a bit modified based on my like personal preferences when it comes to exercises, based on my gym equipment, based on my personal goals and that, but very similar to say, I would hit each muscle group once every 6 to 7 days weekly. I would train approximately 4 times weekly. My sessions would last approximately 40 minutes. I would do like approximately 2, 3 to 7 sets per muscle group weekly, a bit less for smaller muscle groups, a bit more for larger muscle groups. I would do 1 working set per exercise. Before that working set, I would warm up with like 2 light warm-up sets. And yeah, basically like the Dorian Yates approach to training, what Dorian Yates used to do and what he preaches now, and what he teaches his clients and his audience. So I listened to his advices and implemented this in my training. I started training like that. And after starting to do this, I literally got the best results of my life. With this style of training, I became the strongest that I ever been and the biggest that I ever been. And I was doing very few sets, very little volume, spending very little time in the gym, only 4 times weekly, and making the best results ever. Yes, I was training very intensely. I have the capacity to train very intensely. I was pushing every set absolutely to failure, or some sets even beyond, with like rest pause technique or negatives and stuff like that. But I did very little volume and I made insane progress, the best progress of my life. I would make sure to write down in a notebook on my phone all my lifts and how much weight I used for certain exercise, for how many reps, with how good tempo, and then next time I would come and do the same workout, the same exercise, I would do my best to try to progress on it and either do like 1 rep more than last time, a bit more weight than last time, or a bit better tempo than last time, maybe a bit slower negatives and better control and that. And I would progress really I would nicely progress week to week, and by my strength going up, also the muscle mass would follow. Because earlier, especially back in the days when I was training with a bunch of volume, I came to the gym and I didn't really know what's my purpose in that training session. I just need to go through a bunch of sets and to get a pump and to get blood into the muscle. But I wasn't really writing down my lifts and making sure that I progress in strength on all those sets from week to week, and I would spend longer periods of time with no increase in strength. And if you're not getting stronger, you're most likely also not getting bigger, because you need to be constantly putting your muscles under a bit bigger stress than they were put last time, in order to stress them enough to give them a signal to actually grow and to make these muscle adaptations, so muscle growth, to happen. No stimulation for growth. If you're constantly lifting same weights for same amount of reps and you're doing this for months without any changes, without any progress, your muscles literally don't have a reason to grow all these months, and they will stay pretty much the same because there's no stimulation. And same goes for recovery. Let's say if you are training really hard and trying to stimulate the muscle growth, okay, you stimulated the growth, but if you don't allow this muscle enough time and give it enough resources in terms of rest and nutrients and hormones and all that, if it won't recover, it won't grow. So if you could cut off the recovery process and train this muscle again before it's recovered, guess what? You're stopping the growth process. So the whole point behind low volume, high intensity training is that you come to the gym, do what Mike would say, what nature requires from you to do in order to stimulate the growth. And then once the growth is stimulated, you go the hell out of the gym and you recover. So the growth was stimulated, but the muscle needs to recover in order to grow back stronger. First there is training, there is stimulation. Then second, there comes the phase of recovery, when your muscles actually get back to the stage they were before the training. And only then there is a phase of overcompensation, so the growth. So you come to the gym, you stimulate the growth, and then you need to give it time to recover and actually allow the growth to optimally happen, And why are we not doing a bunch of volume? Why are we prioritizing intensity and getting stronger each week? Well, because intensity is the number one factor, that will stimulate the muscle growth, and we want to train each week or each next session a bit more intensely than last time in order to keep stimulating this new growth. But we don't want to be increasing the volume, because if you take, for example, one set of, one exercise, let's say you're doing leg curls, seated leg curls. You do one set to absolute muscular failure, and then maybe you also do negatives to failure with someone helping you to push the weight down and then only doing the negatives. Once you did that, once you brought your muscle to absolute failure and recruited the most motor units that you can possibly recruit, there is if you do another set after this second set will pretty much do almost nothing, you know. It will not stimulate anything because everything that could possibly be stimulated has already been stimulated, you know. It might stimulate a little bit more, I don't know, but for that tiny bit more stimulation, that growth stimulus, you double your recovery needs, you know. And if you increase your recovery needs too much to a point where you are getting overtrained, this will stab you in the back and you will not nearly progress as well as if you were to do just like one set and recover optimally from it and then hit it again next time and progress on it every single week. So yeah, that's the whole point. Now, I want to say that high intensity training, it's certainly not for everybody in my opinion, because a lot of people in the gym, they don't really know how to properly train to failure. They are not training hard enough. They think that they are training to failure, but they are not really training to failure. So I think that you first, before you go into high intensity training and expect some great results from this style of training, you first need to learn how to actually create and generate this kind of intensity and actually train to true muscular failure. So for people that are not able to do this, that are not able to generate this kind of intensity, probably doing something like 2 sets per exercise is more suitable and will provide better results, because they need to compensate for the lack of intensity with a bit more volume. But yeah, as I said, this video is like about my experiences with high intensity training and why I use it, and honestly, I can confidently say that I'll probably use this training approach for the rest of my life, because it really gives me the best results out of everything that I've tried, and I really like it. It's extremely fun when you have like only one all-out set and you write it down, and next time you come and you know exactly what you need to do. You have this one set that you're focused on and you need to somehow try progress on it, either doing like one more rep or improving your tempo or doing a bit more weight, and you're constantly looking forward to like making progress on those one sets that you have on this exercise. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something useful. And like always, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment to support the channel, and see you in the next video, guys.